Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I'm here to do my May wrap up. Alright guys, so May is over already. I feel like this last month went by very quickly, and it was a bit of an odd reading month. If you saw my wrap up for the first half of the month, which I will link up above, you will know that I did not finish a book until the 16th of the month. So I was definitely kind of slumping in the first half of the month, and that has definitely affected the amount of reading that I was able to get done. But I still have 4 books that I want to talk to you about today. And then of course, before we get into those books, we will be going through some general stats for the entire month. Starting with the general stats, I ended up only reading 7 books this month, which is not that much by my standards, but you know, like I explained earlier, we were definitely having a slumpy beginning to the month. That also reflected in my page count, which ended up only being 1,754 pages. As far as audiobook hours go, I listened to 28.55 hours worth of audiobooks, which is a little bit on the lower end, but I haven't really been reading that many audiobooks for the last few months, so it's not that out of the ordinary. On the other hand, or on the bright side, I should say, my average star rating for the month was a 4.25, which is a very high average rating, and I'm very happy with that. As far as breaking down the average rating, I did have 2 books this month that I did not rate. One of them was a book that I DNF'd, and the other one is a nonfiction that I read and decided not to read. As far as actual ratings, I had 1 3-star, 1 3.5 star, 1 4-star, and 3 5-star reads. All right, jumping right into the reviews. The first book that I finished in the second half of the month was Finding Joy by Adriana Herrera. And this book was a gift by a subscriber. So thank you again, Lon. And I'm so happy that I was able to get to this book relatively quickly. That being said, this is a contemporary queer romance that takes place in Ethiopia. We are following an aid worker who is returning to Ethiopia for the first time since his father passed away. He has a lot of complicated feelings about this area because there is a lot of joy here, but is also connected to a lot of sadness because this is where his father passed away. On the other hand, we have Elias, and he lives in Ethiopia and also works for the aid organization as a coordinator, and he and Desta, our main character, end up working together. And as they are working together, they start to fall in love with each other, which is very complicated because unfortunately it is not legal to be queer in Ethiopia, and harm could come to the two of them if it got out that they were queer. And on the other hand, they are also starting to work out what the two of them want to do with their future after they leave this opportunity at the aid organization. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I think that this book was really what I needed when I read it. I thought that it was pretty light and easy to get through, and it had a lot of joy in it, hence the title. I did like that it had some deeper topics such as the fear of being queer in this country, being queer as an emergency relief worker, and going into countries and communities that don't accept queer people can be a bit dangerous at times, and the fact that that was brought up, I liked that. I also enjoyed the fact that Desta was trying to make his mother happy and his deceased father proud by being an emergency relief worker, but at the same time he is finding that that's not really what he wants, and he's feeling a lot of guilt around that, and kind of watching him as he tries to figure out what he wants to do with his future and if it's worth it for him to leave what he knows would make his parents happy for something that isn't guaranteed to make him happy. Is he willing to take that risk to try something new with the hope that it is what he is meant to do? So I definitely like those conversations. Some of the issues I had with the book is it is very insta-lovey, like very insta-lovey. Like within the first 18 pages, you can already tell that Desta is all over Elias. And I thought it was just a little bit too sudden for me. Now, this is a very short book. I would say that it is just over 200 pages. So with a short book like that, you can't exactly expect the romance to be drawn out or anything, but more than 18 pages would have been nice. I was also a little bit disappointed that this was only one POV. The synopsis kind of made it seem like we would get both of their POVs, and we didn't. We only got Desta's, and there were a few moments, especially towards the end, where Elias was going to have some very important conversations with his family that I really would have liked to be privy to, and we weren't because we didn't have his point of view. So that was a little disappointing. I do think that this is self-published or indie published, and it probably could have used another edit or so. And the writing is a little bit on the simplistic side in my opinion, but overall it was a great, fun, heartwarming story. So if you're looking for a happy queer novella, because I would consider this a novella since it's under 250 pages, especially one that's not set in the US, then I would highly recommend this, and I will definitely be checking out more work by this author. Next up, we read a book off of my 5-star predictions list, and that is Ander and Santi Were Here by Johnny Garza Villa. And I believe I kept saying that their name was Ander, but it's Onder, apparently, according to the book. O-N-D-E-R is how you pronounce it. So this is a YA contemporary story between two young people. I would say they're around 19, 20 years old. Onder has decided to take a gap year before accepting his scholarship at a art college because he has been offered an opportunity to draw murals in his town for a non-profit organization, and he is very good at drawing murals. Their family is not super happy with this decision. They wanted them to go off to college just like all their friends were. However, Onder really feels that this is something that they need to do and that it will benefit them because they will have all of this experience and also give them some time to really settle more into the artwork that they want to do, because they're struggling a lot with the fact that they love doing Mexican inspired art while being Mexican and all these people expecting them to do nothing but Mexican art. So they're like, I want to do Mexican art, but I also don't want to do it and everyone thinks I'm doing it because that's all I can do kind of situation. So that's something that they are really struggling with throughout this book, to do what they love while not doing it in such a way that they fall into some sort of stereotype. On the other hand, we have Santi, who ends up taking Onder's job at their family restaurant while Onder is doing these murals, and the two of them have an instant connection. Now, this one I would say is also somewhat insta-lovey, but in this case, I didn't quite mind it because the two of them definitely took some time to get into a relationship. Onder doesn't really know why Santi's holding back, but eventually we find out, and this is in the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler, that Santi is undocumented and he is reluctant to bring Onder into a relationship with him because it could cause him some hurt if Santi is ever deported. For the majority of this book, I was thinking I would give it 4 stars. I was hoping that it would give me a bit more emotion throughout the story, and I was struggling with it just a little bit. I was really enjoying both of the characters. I was really enjoying the themes. The writing was really good. The descriptions of food made me want to eat all the time. And then we got to a part that made me tear up a little bit regarding Santi's inability to kind of live a full life because he is always fearful of being caught. He can never feel super secure in where he is, you know, forming family and a home, because there is no guarantee. And that definitely made me tear up a little bit, because it was very upsetting to read about, especially knowing that there's so many people in our country and other countries who feel exactly that way. And I ended up bumping my rating to a 4.5 star rating until the very end of the story. I absolutely love the way this story ended. It wasn't the way that I was expecting it to end, and possibly not even the way that most people would expect the story to end, but I think it was absolute perfection. And just reading those final lines and just feeling this combination of sadness and anger at the system, but also joy and hope, ended up making me give this book 5 stars. So this 5-star prediction was correct. I did climb my way up to a 5-star. Slowly but steadily we went ahead and did it. I really enjoyed how much hope was in this story. Our characters went through a lot, but they continued to push forward, and they were very determined, and they were not going to let the system tear them down or make them seem like criminals or bad people or people who didn't deserve to be there. And I really liked that. But what I really also liked was the fact that they were tired. They were continuing to move forward, but they were exhausted. You could really tell that this took a toll on their mental health and their physical health, and that was just a very realistic aspect of this story. And so I had a lot of respect for the story, for the characters. It was so sweet. There were so many cute moments in the story. Highly recommend this story if you haven't checked it out. So very happy that my first 5-star prediction that I read was actually a 5-star. We're off to a good start. All right, and then the final physical book that I finished was Seraph by Lily Mayne, and this is the 6th book of the Monstrous series. This is a sci-fi fantasy series, though probably leaning more sci-fi because they're technically aliens, because there was a rift between our world and another, and all these monsters came to our world because they were like, oh, look at all this free space, and our military reacted by bombing like everything. And so we are now in a post-apocalyptic America. You can either live in overcrowded cities that is under the control of the military, you can join the military, or you can head out to the wastelands where there's no military protection, and the military might actually shoot you on sight if they see you out there. And there's a lot of monsters out there as well, and you would be considered a raider. Throughout the story, we follow different characters, either ex-soldiers or raiders, and they all meet up with a monster that they eventually fall in love with. These are all male-male romances. This one is between Seraph and Lilac. Lilac is a raider of a camp that we've experienced in the past. In fact, at this point, this camp is becoming almost like a central meeting zone for monsters and their boyfriends. And essentially he is the killer of the camp. He keeps his distance from other people. A lot of people actually think that he might be a psychopath, but it is his job to kill any other raiders or nomads or soldiers or monsters that try to attack the camp. And one day another raider and his monster boyfriend bring Seraph to the camp. They have saved Seraph from the military. It is very clear that he is in a lot of pain. He's in a cage. He's considered very dangerous. If you get too close to the cage, he will try to kill you. And Lilac offers to guard his cage because it is outside of the camp and therefore open to attack. And as he and the other members of the camp try to talk with Seraph to figure out what's going on with him, Seraph starts to calm down a little bit, and he and Lilac form a very strong bond. I gave this book 5 stars. Yay! This is the 3rd 5-star in a row from this series. This book made me tear up a few times because Seraph was experimented on by the military, and you could just see how much pain he was in and how confused and scared he was about where he is and what happened to him. He has a ton of trauma that he is trying to overcome, and he is facing a lot of hate by some people who see him as nothing but a dangerous monster, but he really is just lashing out because he's in so much pain and because he has been hurt by so many people. And just watching Lilac's patience with him and just seeing Seraph bond with him, this person who actually treats him like an intelligent living being and not just some mindless beast, was really heartwarming. And just watching Lilac go from this really stoic, distant person to someone who just really wanted to be close to Seraph and struggled to be away from him and felt like he finally found someone he could truly be himself around, was just so wonderful. Seraph is definitely the most monstrous of all the monsters that we had. I would say if you're a fan of Venom, you're going to like Seraph, because he essentially is like Venom mixed with a spider, because he has like a ton of eyes and like a big mouth full of sharp teeth and a very long tongue that he can do fun things with. So this book, once again, was a lot of fun. And one of the things I really enjoy about companion novels when it comes to romance is when you start to see all the other couples kind of converge, and it really gives like this found family vibe. And that's definitely what this book had, because there were a lot of the other couples that were making their way to this camp and helping with figuring out what happened to Seraph. And when you find out, my jaw hit the floor. When I found out some stuff about Seraph, I was like, I did not see that coming, like, at all. So that definitely opened some doors to interesting things that could happen in the next book. But yes, no, well written. I really enjoy the balance of romance and working through trauma, fighting monsters, and kind of the camp drama that comes with having monsters in a camp and having some people that are still not very comfortable around monsters. So that was a lot of fun. So yes, another 5-star read of the month, and I'm definitely looking forward to completing this series. I have lore. There is apparently another book, but when I looked into lore, it said that that book was supposed to come out in 2023, which it obviously didn't. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research on that to see if the author has decided not to write another book, because I think I follow them and they have been releasing like other shorter novels, so maybe they just took a little break from the series, but we will see, because I would be very upset if they just dropped this series because I absolutely love it. So if you haven't started the Monstrous series, definitely do so. It is available on KU. As far as I know, it should still be available on there. I've just been buying them physically because I love them so much. Right, and the final book I finished was an audio book, and that is Delicious Monsters by Leslie Sambury. And this is a YA horror story featuring multi-POVs, which I was not expecting, but then again, I didn't really read the synopsis going into this book, so I wasn't expecting anything. But essentially, we are following Daisy, and she and her mom have inherited a house that her mother has been waiting a very long time to inherit. And she seems excited to go to this house, but she also kind of left it up to Daisy if they should go up to this house. And Daisy and her mother have a very complicated relationship. So Daisy's like, oh, she's leaving it up to me so that if we fail, it's all my fault. But she sees this house as her one opportunity to no longer be financially obligated to her mother. They have a bit of a toxic relationship. And so they go to this house and things kind of go downhill from there, because it definitely seems like the house is haunted, and Daisy knows this because she can see ghosts and has been able to see them her whole life. On the other hand, we are following Brittany, I believe is her name, and I think her friend's name is Noah, and they are working for a kind of social media-esque company, kind of where you do like podcasts and short videos, like cooking clips and things. And they are interning there and doing their 3rd season of their show that talks about haunted locations where people have died. And they are visiting this house, which became a bed and breakfast, and are talking about the young Black girl who died there and about Daisy, who apparently lost her mind there. So we are definitely seeing in Daisy's timeline as things escalate, and we see through Brittany's timeline that things ended very badly. So I really like the way that that happened, because they were kind of feeding on each other throughout the story and kind of making you very curious as to see what exactly went down in the end. I ended up giving this story 4 stars. I would say as far as young adult horror, it was relatively well done, and there were some interesting parts of the story for sure. There were some darker themes throughout this story, including kind of like abuse of children, sexual abuse of young women, and both Brittany and Daisy were dealing with mothers that were, I don't want to say like outright abusing them, but were definitely very toxic and were manipulating them through finances. So that is something that Daisy and Brittany had in common throughout this story. I thought that Daisy was a really interesting character to follow. She wasn't the most likable. She is someone who has kind of kept her distance from people, especially because she had a bit of a bad event in her past. I definitely think that the story focuses a lot on how our pasts impact our present and the way that we treat people in the present and the decisions we make throughout our life. So I thought that was interesting, seeing that through each of our characters. I thought that Daisy and her mom's relationship, the development that it had throughout the story, was really interesting. It was very different than the development that Brittany and her mother were having. So it very much shows that there are times where toxic relationships can improve and times where they can't and may potentially get worse, or all you can do is walk away. For me personally, I felt like the ending was a little bit flat. I definitely think that it is a decent ending, but at the same time, I wasn't overly impressed with it. So I did have to go ahead and just give it a 4 star, but I definitely think that this is a book that is worth checking out, especially if you like haunted houses. I think that the haunted house was presented very interestingly, because you were kind of like, is it the house or is it the ghosts in the house that are the problem? It kind of went back and forth between, is the house bad or is the house only bad if someone pushes it to be bad and uses it in bad ways. So it was an interesting concept for sure, and I'm definitely glad that I was finally able to get around to reading this. All right guys, so those are all the books that I read this month. I can easily say that The Forest of 1,000 Lanterns was my least favorite read, as my only 3-star read. But choosing between my 5 stars, the 3 5-stars I had, it is very difficult for me to say what my favorite book of the month was. I might have to go with Seraph, just because I love Lily Mayne's books so much and it has so many things that I like in them. You know, we got the good smut, we got the really romantic aspects to it, we got interesting world building and plot development throughout it. We had some kind of found family vibes going on. We had some drama throughout it as well. So I think this had just a little bit of everything that I like. So I think I will go ahead and say that this was my favorite book of the month. I would love to know what your favorite and least favorite book of the month were. And as always, thank you guys so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!